Right, why those other two are uploading, they're taking a long time. I've just checked there with YouTube. I just want to be really clear. So, little scummy pieces of shit women that lied about me. One of them is my mother's niece, Christy Childs. All this because Giovanni Consalvo was scamming since I met him. So yes, okay, like I said to insurance, yeah, I was mugged November 30th, 2007, that's right, but it was just a mugging. The reason why I was off work for so long was because during that period of time, they were reshuffling my department, which we went from VIP services, so under, customer relations with Sarah Magnoni, and they were combining it with another department and getting rid of staff and offering people redundancy. So I got mugged at the worst time. So they put me off work. My employer put me off work on part salary payment when I could have gone back to work, stopping me getting a redundancy payout, which would have been about 300,000. Okay, it was cheaper for them to put me on part salary payment, right? Now, yes, I got mugged and recovered from physical injuries. And I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do? Because they're like, no, look, we've said you can't come back to work till you recover. We're the ones that are going to say whether you can or can't. So even if I have my doctor saying, oh, yeah, he's fine, doesn't matter. So they're, all right, I'll go back to my studies. So when I left high school in 1995, I went to TAFE College and studied Fine Arts Certificate in 1996. Then I changed in 1997 and did Design Fundamentals and was focusing on design. Then, as I said, in 1998, there's some things that went on and so forth. In 1999, I worked for the Powerhouse doing events, which I did. So I started off just doing getting a foot in the door. And then before I left at the end of 99, I was hosting events. There's a newspaper article. So then I went back home to Sydney and I was working for the Gazebo Hotel, Church Street, Parramatta, while I was waiting for a job to come through at Star Casino. So in the year 2000, I applied for a VIP host job at Star Casino. In my interview, I was told, look, we can't hire you from external. We have to hire you from internal. You've got the job when it comes available, but you've got to start off in gaming. So I was like, well, I'm not interested in gaming, basically. It was hosting that I was interested in. So I went and just did TAB and whatever. Then waiting for a job to open in hosting. As soon as the job opened in hosting, I went across. So it was already done. This was done in my first interview. Okay, and I've got all this on record. So I was a VIP host. So then after I was mugged, I was like, well, okay, if I'm off for my career, I'll go back to my studies in design and I'll study. So I went and studied at Moore Design Centre and I studied design, events, illustration, certificate for Moore Design Centre, where, yes, I did study design a wearable object, which touches on fashion design. So to those people that go, oh, no, he wasn't a fashion designer. I would have done so much more with design if I'm not fighting these people that are scamming an organisation for 9 years. So I've got people scamming an organisation for 9 years, stopping me from going back to my studies because it's not permanently disabled. Like I said, yeah, I'm not permanently disabled. Stop making up stories. Oh, you didn't get your information from me. Or whatever, mentally disabled, whatever they're trying to make up. It's like, so I went back to my studies in design. So 2009, and that was fine. So 2009, I'm studying at Moore Design Centre, TAFE College, and I get a credit for my work in design a wearable object. Now, I stopped it there in 2009 and went to Cocoa Republic that was affiliated with Moore Design Centre, TAFE College, because Cocoa Republic had a design school part of TAFE College back then. And I did more with interior design. So I completed the course interior decoration. And during that whole period, I'm working for Steve Hatch-Dimitri. And I'm going to say this, I don't care, he hasn't got my back. I've got documents that prove what I'm doing. So he should have my back, considering I was working for him from 2009 until 2012. Now, of course, I had to fit around my studies. So if I had studies on, I couldn't work for him. But as soon as I wasn't studying, I was doing some weeks, I was doing 7 days a week, over 12 hours a day, which is why I kept saying, when I found out these lies that Giovanni had been telling people like George Jacobs or my family or his friends and so forth, I said, but that doesn't match the facts. Because I never saw Giovanni, barely saw him from 2009 to 2012. I was either at St. Peter's at Chili Pip, I was at Enmore at Enmore Design Centre TAFE College, or I was in Alexandria, which is at Cocoa Republic, affiliated with Enmore Design Centre TAFE College. Now, as I also said when I made it very clear, I haven't done anything with design since 2012, but I am going to get back into it. I've only had a break because I kept getting some chronic fatigue issues. So instead of me focusing and trying to push through like I am now, I'm just going to focus on my health for a year. So I've already got the green card in and so forth. I'm just going to focus on my health and try and pick up my immune system and go back to it. When I went to go back to it, this is again where I say, victim of defamation discrimination since 2015, there's scumbags of women that police aren't even arresting for spying into my life and then criminal defamation saying, no, he wasn't a designer. I'm like, I never said anything other than I had studied design and I have worked in design. I've done paid work in design. That's what I said. I have not said anything other than the courses I passed was, so you can see my transcripts from TAFE. 1996, Fine Arts. 1997, Design Fundamentals. 2009, Enmore Design Centre TAFE College, where I received the credit for my pass in Design a Wearable Object. 2010, where I passed Interior Decoration with my interior design course there. And I worked in design. That is what I have said. I have not ventured outside of that. I designed a sofa for Jamie Wright. Yes, I did. Jamie Wright, who had a shoe shop in Double Bay, I designed that sofa that was in her shoe shop in Double Bay. That's my design. That was back a long time ago because I designed that in 2010. It went in her shoe shop in 2011. That's all I've said. Right there's the truth. I don't need some scumbag of a female that's not getting arrested by police keep lying about me. That has now put my life on hold for 9 years. Like I said, good luck to these people. You're going to need it because at the moment you've got me being lied about for 9 years because my mother didn't do one decent thing for her children from her first marriage in her entire life. If my mother Carol wasn't trying to manipulate this so she could get what she wanted and looked at the facts and thought, well, hang on, this is my son from her first marriage, despite her own bullshit issues, she should be really defending her children. And when your son calls you and says, you've been a paralegal most of your life, you should still have, solicitor connections, I need a solicitor to verify this information. And you turn around and say, no. It's like, all I need is, here's my documents, here's what I've said, in the statement, all I need is solicitor verified and put a stop to this defamation of character and slander. And you say, no, why? What are you up to? What are you scamming? I know what your sister's like. I know what Robin and Christy Childs are like. They're all scammers. Why aren't you doing the right thing? I know obviously Mary Mahowski is a big scammer. Seriously, I've watched you guys do this. Why, when your son says, okay, I just got lied about, this is what's Giovanni's been saying for years. Now, you know the truth because I barely saw Giovanni. So why are you not doing the right thing? And then there's people like Belinda Jeffries who, she's going to come undone. Like I said, she was my hairdresser, got paid for a service. That's it. You don't get to involve yourself into your client's life. I'll hear you out, but I'm going to just remind you again that we are still going to face each other in court. That's it. We're not friends. We are mere acquaintances that I'm your client, I paid you for a service. And there's nothing more than that. And as for Giovanni, he grew up in a suppressed environment, living in a country town, Adelaide. Yeah. So I should have just let him go back there when I met him. Seriously, I wish, and I've said this, I wish I had never ever met him. When I met Giovanni Consalvo, or let me say Jonathan Craig, because before he moved to Sydney, apparently he was known as Johnny or Jonathan, and his mother, Dawn Carpenter, some convict Scottish. That's what she said. He was living in a share house. So he'd only ever lived with his boyfriends in Sydney. He was living in a share house in Kensington. He had no money, no job prospects, nothing. He was a waiter when I met him. He was an unemployed waiter when I met him. So, and that's all he was. He had a breakdown because of something to do with his ex-boyfriend, Mark Gilchrist. And yeah, and look, so he was actually literally was applying for compensation because of a breakdown that he had with his ex-boyfriend. That's what he was doing when I met him. He was struggling in massive amounts of debt, even child support debt. He had a mattress, an Xbox, and a TV, and that's all he had. He owned nothing, had no money, no income coming in. Just a fucking loser. And seriously, I looked at that and thought, should never ever have let that guy stay at my place, ever. He's made money from this. Oh God, he's done great out of it, especially great out of the lies that he continued since 2015. So when I completely dumped his ass, which was once in 2011, I hardly saw him in 2011, then I was like, no, I made it official in 2015, in April, which is where I was getting with the first video. The lies started. I'll tell you why. Giovanni had nothing without me. He knew that I wasn't going to accept him back. The only way he could get ahead was to scam. He had no money, nowhere to live, homeless, but he never did have anything. He moved into my life, my lifestyle, and what I had. Never ever had anything. Now, my mother could have easily got me a solicitor and correct that, or could have, helped out. So I moved out of my apartment temporarily. Now, it was my apartment, it's on the rent subsidy, look, my mistake, but I just was like, I can't be around him. I was going to explain this in detail in the other video, I'll do it briefly. Couldn't be around him when I found out what had been said, and how damaging it was to me, and thinking, okay, I've got to, the way this was negotiated with Star Casino was, I didn't get any payout for injuries at the time. I was on part salary payment for 10 years, which means at the end of those 10 years, I can negotiate my job back after part salary payment. So they give you 10 years to recover. You should be recovered, maintaining health conditions and so forth. And then you can go back into your employment. I've got those details there. Now, this is going to damage me. And I actually said to him, I need this corrected. I'm meant to be negotiating my job back in 2017. And this is what I've been doing while off work. I haven't been at home, like what was being said. What was said to these people, not true. What Giovanni's been spreading about me is not true. And I packed my bag and I moved out of my apartment for 6 months briefly. I was like, no, I can't deal with this. It was two reasons. One, growing up, Easter and Christmas was always spent home in Sydney, even after my mother moved. There was never ever a time that Easter or Christmas was spent outside of Sydney until after 2005. The first time that it was ever spent outside of Sydney was in 2005. Before that, it was always spent in Sydney, right up to 2005. So there was that. Well, I never actually, the first Christmas I've ever spent outside of Sydney was in 2007. So I've always spent in Sydney. And that was that. And because Giovanni was getting, the bullshit with my mother's sister again, which is how this scam has really gone on, thanks to my mother's sisters. And the other one is, so correcting the lies that were said about me, because I'm there going, hang on. And I said to Giovanni, I said, you're not a fucking carer. You haven't been doing anything for me. I was working for Steve. I was going back to my studies. I said, the only time I said I was ever home was after I got hit bad with chronic fatigue because of what happened in 2010. It caught up with me. So go back and tell the truth. He didn't tell the truth. He didn't tell the truth because it would fuck him up. I told my mother. This is before I was lied about in December 2015. So I moved out of my apartment. And I get a phone call from my mother saying, oh, you can't pay rent or something. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, Giovanni said you've gone for all your money. I was like, why would I go for all my money? It's like, oh, because Giovanni's trying to build him. He wants Giovanni's lived off me since I met him. Now, when I first met him, he knows that I had in one of my bank accounts 140,000 in it, and he does. I've still got it, and he's written on it. That's his handwriting written on it. So he can't deny that he didn't see how much money was in one of my bank accounts. He has continuously tried to get his hands on it, and that's the truth. Okay, always saying, but you had a bank account with 140,000 in it. What happened with that? I'm like, that's none of your business. That is none of your business. And that's the thing. He was always after money, always. It was always like, what do you have? So I said to him, so when I moved out of my apartment temporary for 6 months, I said, okay, you still owe me for unpaid rent when you lived with me in Surrey Hills. You can pay it here. If you're still here, I don't want to be around you. I'll be back in 6 months. So he rang my mother and said, I just made this bullshit story up asking, we're in dire straits and bullshit. It's like, can't pay this and can't pay that. My mum rings me and said, Bob, fuck off. I'm not living there. I'm trying to avoid him. I want him out of my apartment. That's why I see he still owes me. He's lived for free since I met him. He's lived for free. He's never paid for anything. And we've had the same discussion since I've been back in Australia. And he's like, yes, but you said it, you have to. It's like, okay, fair enough. I did. Because it was my place. I was paying the bills on it for myself, whether someone lived with me or not. Beside the point, I had to pay the same amount. So it didn't make any difference. But I moved out for that brief 6 months. You had just had a free ride and never had to pay anything except for some groceries here and there. You never had to pay internet. You never had to pay electricity, gas. You never had to pay rent. You lived for complete freedom with nothing except for what you want to spend your money on. And you're off getting fisted and spending your money on ice. That's your problem. Okay? I moved out for 6 months. Now, instead of my mother being a decent mother and going, my son's being lied about, I'm just going to ignore this. She turned around and tried to manipulate. It's like, Justin has to move home here. So this isn't home, for starters. Justin's not going to do anything of the sort. You were told the truth, and now you want to manipulate existing lies about me so you can try and benefit from it. And that's what happened, and that's where it started from in 2015. And I actually did send my mother, I said, this is what I've got in the bank. And my mother goes, what? How come you got? And I thought, since I did, I was like, shit, think of what Nan and Pop used to say, never tell your mother you've got money. And she's like, you got that much money in the bank? You could buy a house here for Faith to live in. Faith's this, Faith's that, Faith's a fucking dirty junkie. No, thanks very much. And that's where they started. It was like in 2015, I was like, that's my savings for me to move to America, Mum. Oh, now you're moving to America. I thought you were going to do it in New Zealand. I was like, never said anything about going to New Zealand. And I never said about moving to Taree. I've had investment properties in the past. I was looking for another rental property to buy and rent out. And I looked at where I could actually make more money without having to put too much money into a place. I never said about moving anywhere. I said, you should know your son's got a green card. I was in America last year. I've got a green card. I've got my savings. And that money in the savings is for me to buy a place in America when I relocate there. She was told this in 2015. That's what started this. Because suddenly I was having psychotic breakdown. He thinks he's got a green card to America. Which is why I've cut it up. And I was like, fuck, shouldn't have cut that up. Because when I was in America, it's like, there's no help when you're trying to get the US government to say, yeah, I'm a green card holder. I haven't had any connection from the US government since my interview in August 2014. And then when I made the entry as a permanent resident, and every time I make an entry through LAX as a permanent resident, go for as a citizen or permanent resident, it's fine. But when I'm telling you in your own country, where I'm a permanent resident holder, there's issues coming from immigration and I'm getting slandered and you don't have any help for me. I don't want help from Australia, thanks. I want help. I accepted a green card to America. I want help from America. I'm a permanent resident of America. I don't want some support network from Australia or other Commonwealth countries. I'm sorry, but I left that behind when I gave up and went through the process to become an American permanent resident holder, to live permanently in America. Now, I'm telling you, this is what's going on. I'm telling you, this is what's happened in my life in America. And you're saying that there's no help. It has to be sorted out in Australia. Why do I have to go back to Australia and sort this out? I'm a permanent resident holder of America. You should be sorting this out. That's why I accepted permanent resident status to leave Australia behind and become a citizen of another country. You should be sorting it out. I shouldn't be having to go back to Australia to sort this out. So this is where it started. All this crap. And it started because my ex-partner had been scamming. My mother tried to jump onto that scam. I have been slandered by scummy pieces of shit people. And I've been too polite to let people into my life. So like this Belinda Jeffries. Which I have here out. Let's see what she got to say. Let's see what they're meant to do done. As I say, I don't like her particularly that much, to be honest, outside of being someone I paid for a service as my hairdresser and was just someone to briefly affiliate with. I don't mean that as a bad way, but I'm busy with my life, and I don't like people interfering in it. And I have always never been any different. You're on arm's length. Even people in Sydney that were friends of mine in the last 20 years, it's like, but you don't know much about me because I've never let people know much about me. I would go to work and there's all these guessing games, and it was like, or if I had a boyfriend at work, which I should never do it again. And whatever he spread around as well, it's like, yeah, okay. I don't care. I never said it. I go to work, do my job, and you have people like, oh, so where's this, and where you from, and where you went to school, and I'm like, yeah, I don't engage in that. I'm sorry, but you're my co-worker friend. We socialise, but as per me, my life, my family, my heritage, my history, my personal life, who I sleep with, anything, I don't engage in. I'm here to get paid for money, work. We're friends. We'll socialise. We'll have a chat about what needs to, but that's it. And I've never been any different. It's like, yeah, I don't engage in that. And the other thing as well, because friends come and go. I mean, you have to put up with other people, but yeah, friends come and go. You can dump people and move on quickly, like I can. I'm not a relationship person. I love that when people were trying to make up stories about, but he can't. He's got to learn to move on from this relationship. It's like, what relationship? Because I lived like I was single. If you know me, you wouldn't be making up these stories. If you know me, you know that I don't do relationships at any type. I'm too selfish. So too selfish to do relationships. So if I'm going out with somebody, that's why some people think I'm single, because I behave like I'm single. They'll never see me as like, yeah, I'm never around my partners. Which is why I always said one good relationship I had was with John Cabino, and he lived half the time at his mum's. They come and stayed with me. And I was like in 2008 when I dumped him. And I did, and he never forgave me for it, even today. Like, seriously, his brother died recently, and I said to his sister, who I like, his sister Fran, I said, okay, here's my number. If John wants to speak with me, he can, which means if you want me at the funeral, I would love to say my respect to your brother, because I adored your brother, but I'm not going to show up at someone's funeral uninvited, because that's who I am. Because this is in the past. You're in the past. Your family's in the past. As much as I adore them in the past, that's still in the past. If John wants me there, he can call me. He didn't, so I was like, okay, that's fine. But I'm still already said my piece to say, look, I'm polite, I'm respectful, but that's on you. Because I know he never got over when I dumped him. And then he tried to get back with me in 2009. I was like, oh, it's too late now. I'll let this fucking Geo come and stay. And the same thing is that everyone's like, oh, with this Geo. I was like, Geo and I barely had a relationship. So whatever scam he's tried with these organisations, good luck. Which is like he was told, hey, I gave him how many chances in 9 years to go back and tell the truth. It's like, right, that's it. Then you can wear the cost of the fact that you did commit fraud and you did commit forgery, and I'm not staying it. I'm not going to back down until you actually get arrested for forging my signature on those documents. So there's those documents that you created. That's my signature that you forged on every one of those documents, and police are meant to be charging you for each time you forge my signature on those documents. That is a criminal offence that carries a jail sentence. You were given enough chances to go back to organisations and people and say, I did lie about Justin. Yes, he has a green card to America. Yes, he studied design. He was only resting when he had pneumonia and health problems. I did this because whatever, like he had enough time to eat it, to turn it around and fall on his double-ended sword that he created for himself. And I was polite enough to just keep ignoring it. This is from 2015. This is what caused the argument with him when I'm moving in 2016. It's like, you fucking asshole, you caused this because you lied. And then he pushed the cabinet into me. I thought, you fucking prick. And here I'm getting told that you're also recording me. Bullshit. Which I was. I was like, I don't know if it was or wasn't. He said, no, I wasn't. I was like, I don't care anymore. All I know is that, this shit happened because it was so easy to be done in a country where there's no legal system, for starters, because it wouldn't happen in America. In America, you just say to a magistrate, this has happened, I need to take it to court. It's a matter for a magistrate to decide over, and it's so easy to be able to do that and get it resolved. Here we are 9 years later, it's not resolved in Australia. And number two, my family, and both sides of my family. I mean, my dad's side of fucking dickheads. Ask my dad what high school I went to. See if he can tell you. I love Dad as a social level, but as a father, Ask him what high school I went to, or what has his son studied, what has his son done for. He doesn't know. But then ask him about my half sister Sky Sheridan Fleming. See, we're just the kids from the first marriage. But ask my grandmother when she was alive, and she'll be able to tell you everything. Ask my grandmother something and be like, oh no, Justin did this. Oh, I know Rodney Sard, his friend. You ask my grandmother, she'll tell you. No one else will be able to. And my cousins on my dad's side, listen here, dad's sisters, we never had anything to do with them growing up. It wasn't until my Nana Ruby's funeral, and I was always close to Nana Ruby, dad's mum, her funeral in October 2007, did we reconnect, and I was like, all right, I'll stay in touch. But then I was mugged November 2007. So they don't know anything about me at all. My cousins, Christy Saruni. Christy Saruni and I didn't grow up together. Christy Saruni is my dad's younger sister, Aunt Linda's, and her husband, Uncle Tony's daughter. Christy Saruni, I met briefly at Auntie Sandra's funeral in 2001, which is dad's older sister, and then again at Nan's funeral, and then we became really good friends. So Christy Saruni and myself just hit it off straight away, which same as Joan and myself did straight after Nan's funeral. So my cousins on dad's side. Nan's funeral in 2007. But again, I'm looking at this going, hang on, we're family members and you're jumping on a boyfriend that I had and you're jumping on his wagon, so to speak, yet I'm your cousin. And if you want to know your family member, then know your family member. You don't need to know me through, like, so this is apparently what Giovanni had been doing since I met him, contacting people with bullshit, bogus information, crying and whinging all the time that things were happening that weren't happening. And this is where I say where I've been gaslighting. But I've got documents that prove it. And like I said, get it in the court. There we go. Steve Hatch-Dimitri, get him in front of a magistrate where then he has to swear out in the court. It's like, well, actually, when did Justin start working for you at Chili Pit? 2009. So he did do me a reference. In that reference, he referenced the fact, and it was nice of him to do that. It was a nice reference. Thanks, Steve. That I've been doing work for him since 2006. What he meant by that was I actually have been designing my own sofas since 2006, which I did back then. So I would do my own little sketch and take it in and go, can we create this? It's like, oh, Justin, and you want it for this? Like, that's what it was like. So I have been working with him since 2006. So I knew him back when I was with John. But I didn't actually do work for him until 2009. 2009 until 2012. Like I said, I'll put all this out there on the internet so that way if it's out in the public. So if I'm standing in front of a magistrate and the people are trying to discredit me again by saying he was dishonest or he was this, it's like, no, I'm not. Throughout the last 9 years, I've told the truth, and you're the one that keeps coming back to me saying stuff, you deny me the truth. So I've just stopped my life for 9 years. I can't do anything with it. Like I said, what's caused any health problems? 9 years. You're the one that stopped me being able to go back to my studies in design. You're the one that prevented me from, at the time when I finished my design studies, working in it. Okay. And still, I got harassed. Sorry, pin that. And I'm still getting harassed by people from Tamworth from my high school, aren't I? So we're getting harassed by some loser. Like, I did get harassed by some wanker fucking, what's his name? Anthony Wood. Yeah. And he asked what nationality I was. And I was like, that's weird. I'm thinking, because I know you from high school. Or know of you. We would not be friends. And I'm going, nationality. Dad's father's an orphan. Which is where, my cousins say, look, they always thought he was Italian. I'm like, yeah, he looks more Arabic than Italian. And mum's, my grandmother, her great-grandmother's French. So that's where you look picking up on those nationalities. Apart from that, English and whatever. But yeah, so I make that comment. And I've always said, oh, mum's got French on that side, which she does. Bridget Dufresne, which my mother keeps only denying now that Nan's dead to tell Carol to fuck off, basically, to say, oh, Carol, piss off. As soon as Nan and Pop are dead, yeah, they're not. Anyway. But yeah, Nan always said, and you know what? I've said, okay, fine, let's leave that aside about Bridget Dufresne and just focus on who cares, like where she was born. Bridget, Nan's great-grandmother, mum's always like, oh, last name was Ryan. I'm like, her married name was Ryan. Her maiden name was Dufresne. Your mother always said that her great-grandmother's family are French. That means her family, not her husband's family. That's what she said. You fucking idiot. So anyway, yeah, that's some truth there as well. So what I said was the truth, and then I got attacked by that. I was like, wait a minute. Meredith Williams, so the Williams on my dad's side, because dad's older sister married a Williams. Not the Williams on my mum's side. So there's Williams on both sides. Because remember, Bridget Dufresne or Bridget Ryan had 3 daughters: Julia Ryan, May Ryan, and Annie Ryan. Julia married a Sayer, became Julia Sayer. May married a Goff, became a Goff, and Annie married a Williams Shortner as well. So she's Williams. So Annie Williams on dad's side, Annie Williams on mum's side is the one that lived in Bellevue Hill. Annie Williams on mum's side, so Nan's grandmother's sister. Her son, Tommy, his son is the one that I saw last time I saw, which is Gary Williams at Auntie Margaret's funeral in 2000, about October 2003, I think Auntie Margaret passed away, in Balmain, and he was still living in Bondi back then. I don't know if he's alive now. So Nan's cousin is Gary Williams, who grew up in Bellevue Hill. So my nana grew up going to this family, her cousin's place in Bellevue Hill, and Gary got left his grandmother's house in Bellevue Hill, but he sold it and was still living in Bondi back in 2003. But that's the last time I ever saw him, was 2003, Nan's cousin. And Nan's uncle lived in Bellevue Hill. So my great uncle Fred, this is what I kept saying, but when I knew him, he was living in Leichhardt. But even Uncle Fred would say, because he owned the house that his sister rented off him. But his sister rented his house in Leichhardt and raised her family there. Well, where was Uncle Fred living? Well, yeah, he was living in London. But when he was back home in Sydney, he was living in Bellevue Hill. He was living at Edgecliff Road, Bellevue Hill. So that's where he's from. So, yeah. So that part, that section of my nana's family, her mother's mother, so her grandmother's sisters, that section is from Bellevue Hill. I made that comment as well, and that's true. Which is why, and I spent a lot of time with my nan growing up. So that side. So now going back to dad's side, where we talk about dad's father. Yeah, dad's father, Stanley Fleming, was an orphan. That's why he looks the way he does. I know what my dad's father's brother-in-law, so my dad's Uncle George, his mother, my nan Ruby's brother, George, said to me when he stayed with me in Surrey Hills about what nationality he thought my grandfather was, and how he was led to believe what happened. Well, they know more than what my mother does. My mother's getting information. Look, my mother's an idiot. My mother's made comments about my dad's side that don't even make any sense at all because they don't match any facts. She just shoots her mouth off. It's like, but you don't even know your first husband's side of the family. I do, because it's my family. It's not yours, Carol. So Stanley Fleming, which I knew growing up, which is weird because Tamworth people were like, but he doesn't grow up with them. And they're making up stories. But the country people, they make up stories. You should see them in this area. Oh, man, I would go off and live my life and think, but you make fools out of yourself every time you talk to me. I like the idiots downstairs. Oh, fucking Heidi Jones. What an idiot. Seriously. Anyway. So it was, so Stanley Fleming, my dad, Mark Fleming's father, he was an orphan raised by Edith Kavanagh in Botany Bay. Now, even Meredith Williams, who's married to Meredith McGregor, down in Shore Harbour, my cousin there, which is dad's older sister, so Sharon Williams, her daughter, she had sat back and said, about Pop Stanley being, the way ethnic looking, and, they most likely always thought Italian, but we've said Italian, Maltese, Greek, Lebanese. I mean, he looks Arabic. And then look at Auntie Sandra, how Auntie Sandra looks. So those comments were made. They were made right through my dad's side of the family. But funny how they then twisted this in the last 9 years. It's like, why are you twisting what you've said? Why are you now suddenly twisting this, what you've said? You got issues if you're twisting it. Like, I actually turned to my cousin Meredith and said, you made those comments. And even I turned to my cousin Joan Hillier, and because she said, mum had a DNA done, and her mum, meaning your auntie, your dad's sister, her DNA came back predominantly French and German. I was like, oh, I'll bring this up once, and then it's this massive big hoo-ha. I was like, what? What's the big deal? And then my mother's jumped on this, and I said to Joan, and Joan, they got the shits at me. It's like, listen, I'm getting lied about here. You're my cousin, and you made that statement. Can you just help me and say, well, yeah, this is a true statement? And my cousin Joan Healy was like, oh, your mother's batshit crazy, Justin. Yes, my mother, meaning your auntie, her DNA came back predominantly French and German. And yeah, I'm on this, like, meaning like my cousins are rich, but they weren't raised rich. They made money with their, work and so forth. And they definitely weren't raised rich because they're from Campbelltown originally. But, on that side. So Joan, like where she lives on the beach, her brother, Jeffrey Williams, where he lives in Shell Harbour, her other sister, Meredith Williams, is like, yeah, well, mum's making up these stories about you guys. She's like, I just ignore your mum's batshit crazy. It's like, you say this and then say ignore it, which is, I love this word, ignore it. But then she goes and repeats things to people that listen to her and believe her, and this is damaging my life. So as my cousin, can you help? Do you think they helped? It's like, all right, nah, this is bullshit now. Meredith, you're my cousin. I asked you to verify something. I asked you to verify photos. I asked you to verify this. Christy Serini, you're my cousin. I've asked you and your husband, John Serini, to verify stuff for me. Your children, which are my cousins. So Connor, Addison, Jaden, verify. You can't do this? Seriously. You can verify. Okay, you may not know everything, but it's like when it comes to you, I've asked you to verify something that you could verify for me. This is what's going on. You don't believe me because mum's making up stories. I was like, oh, doing this for attention. She was like, no, this is what's been said in the last 9 years. So do this. And then this fucking shit, like I said, I'm going to meet up with this hairdresser. I'm so smugged about this. I'm so smugged about this because I want to see what she's up to and just, play it. Give people the benefit of the doubt. I was like, but nah, mate. After the last 9 years, don't think. You were only my hairdresser before they got paid for a service. I socialise with everybody. But yeah, there's no one in Australia that I would ever bring back into my life. Moving forward, we could have been friends. I'm friends with everybody. I'll put it that way. I hate using that word friends because I like to be able to easily go, cut people, move on. I'm someone that always cuts people and moves on. I don't cut assets and belongings that are important because that's not what you should be moving on from. I don't do this whole socialist communist behaviour of living. I don't believe in support networks and friends and this shit. I believe, in a good solicitor, which I should have had when I was mugged after work and for myself to be listened to, and this would not have gone so pear-shaped. And if I had been listened to, and I said to people, don't ask my fucking family. I know what they're like. If you need information about me, get it from me. Before this goes the way it's just gone, like in the last 9 years, you get your information from me and that's it. Because I know what my family are like. I know how these women behave. Okay? If you need information, you get it from me. I don't care if it's immigration trying to go, well, he went to school here. Let's see who his friends were at school. And I would turn around and say, no, thanks. I deliberately didn't keep in touch with them. Had friends that I was affiliated with at school, but I had there was... I did briefly hear around Trent Brown. There was nothing in common with me. The ones that I had that were sort of a very Sydney-like with me, where we would hang out at coffee shops. Daniel Gillette, Dan Hallett, other people as well. Different high school, but Nick Simpson Deeks. He went to different high school. He went to Oxley. But we'd hang out, and stuff. And then at least I've got a bit of my Sydney life here. But I was like, I'm not staying because I'm going to go back home to Sydney. Rebecca Munro, Ainsley and Gemma Bartlett. I used to be friends with Shane Hart, but, he was always involved with rugby. And I was like, I haven't got any interest in rugby. I tried. Really, I'm more of a soccer player. I used to play soccer in Sydney, and when Mum moved, she said, they don't have soccer here. You're going to have to sign me up for rugby. And I was like, oh, man, this is a ridiculous game. So I did 2 years of rugby just to try and, like Mum said, you've got to change. It's like, well, I can't get involved. No, I'm not interested. I'm interested in soccer. These people aren't interested in soccer. Now I'm not even interested in soccer because I'm old, but I was when I was younger. Um, yeah. So like I used to play soccer for Duneside, and it was so that's what it was like. It's like I don't have anything in common. I get involved in the arts and theatre. There's not much of it. I can be polite and which I have to these people, but they're fucking idiots. Just they're idiots. They're backwards idiots. They were backwards in the 90s. Honestly, like you got to remember coming from Sydney, and going there, it was like a time warp where I'm like, oh man, this is like going 50 years behind. And the problem is the people there, they were born there. So Mum's trying to get me to fill out with people that are actually born in the area. So I've got nothing in common with them. So I've just come back home from Sydney, like where I was at back where we're from in Blacktown, and I'm trying to explain to these people, and they have no idea because they haven't left this New England area. And that's what it was like. It's like, so I was like, okay, and they used to get their back up because they like different lifestyles. So they will be being dickheads back, and it's like, and they'll be like, and it's like, okay, I can't communicate with you. You're very backwards people, and that's just how you are. And so even at school, it was just like, and yeah, never, yeah, I had a group of people I would never ever let, like even the people from high school, it's like, oh, like not, well, every second weekend was back home in Sydney, so my social life was there, and every single holiday was back home in Sydney. So there was no room outside of class to have a leisure time or social life with those people in the area. Mum tried to push me on people that she was like trying to be friends with, like at the sale yards. Like, oh my god, Kelly Cook and Brooke Evans, this fucking deadbeat Aboriginal Brooke Evans. Oh my god, which I'm sure Amanda would affiliate with because well, Amanda does that. Like, Mum knew her father from the sale yards in Sydney. So apparently, Reginald George Purdy, back when we used to do sales in Homebush Bay with the horses, and they was still in Blacktown, and I grew up there going to the sale yards in Homebush Bay as well. Mum said she knew Les Evans from the sale yards in Homebush Bay before he got with Kelly Cook's mum. So back when he was with his first wife or something, like, I don't know, they knew each other from Sydney, from the horse world. They were from Newcastle, we were from Blacktown. Somewhere they've crossed paths in the world. So when they found out that they were both in the same area, like Mum had moved from Sydney, Mum was always trying to get us to socialise. It's like, yeah, no, because they are fucking, type people. But I'm not saying like I like them, but not where it was like, no, man, I'm, back home in Sydney things. Oh man, it was weird. Like, in Sydney, I studied art. Here's the thing. Oh, Kelly does art. I'm like, oh, no, she doesn't. She draws fucking stuff to do with Bart Simpson and colours it in. Like, and I'm like, oh god. Like, Mum's like trying to push people onto me. It's like, yeah. Oh, why didn't you do it? It's like, no. Like, coming from Sydney, where I grew up with Uncle Fred, where I grew up actually doing art in Sydney, even in primary school. St. Aidan's, go into the art gallery all the time, actually doing, proper art. I was always, from a young kid, training to be an artist. That was my focus as well. And my great uncle was a fantastic artist. Uncle Fred's an absolute great artist. And then, yeah, it just wasn't, there was no click, there was no fit. It was like, well, you moved here because that's what you want, Carol. You like the environment, good. Don't start forcing people to do what you want. Like, my mother's always like, oh, he's got to move out of the city because the city's involved in drugs and this and that. It's like, I've been a drunk alcohol in my life. I don't use drugs. Besides me standing back laughing at people like Belinda Jeffries and Anthony Toomer that are off their face, because I'm there spectating, not participating. Despite me spectating what other people do, I'm spectating. Fine. But yeah. And then the other crap, they're deliberately trying to push my life around to get what they want. So, man, I've got the green card since 2014. You continue this into America and you cost me money in damages. My green card's up for new renewal in December 2024. You owe me my money back. And yes, you do. A good solicitor will prove this if they want to do their job right. You owe me my money back, plus my assets and belongings and damages. You can restore my credibility. I don't know how I'm going to get back into the work from this, but this is no one's business except for myself. So you country losers can run along and stop involving yourself into my life, like the conversation today. Because it's nothing to do with anyone except for myself. I never got sponsored. It's no one's business in my life except for me. And then what can be done? Someone's going to restore that credibility that damage that's been done between myself and the US. Then I will relocate back there. And even if that means for now buying a place in Atlantic City and falling back on casino work, whatever, there. Okay, doing that for the time being. That's what's going to happen. Why would I stay in Australia? I went through a green card process to not be in Australia.